So basically, we are starting to understand the different approaches in the political science, like how there are different approaches to understand a political phenomenon, how there are different approaches to understand the political inquiry. Like if you want to do any research in the political science, you use certain methods. Like if you want to do a research on democracy, let's say, okay, so there are different methods by which you can do it. Like there are traditional methods like historical method, there are legal and constitutional methods, there are institutional methods, like where you learn about the institutions that exist in a certain country, and then you try to compare it with the different countries. Okay, so now we'll start with the philosophical approach. So philosophical approach is it's a part of traditional approach, and it is one of the oldest. It is one of the oldest approach to study the political phenomenon. If someone wants to build an understanding of the issue of politics, or so political philosophy is basically considered as an oldest approach to study the political phenomenon. Like if there is any political phenomenon, let's say elections or voting behavior, or let's say democracy, equality, rights. So all these political phenomena can be studied through philosophical approach. There are different approaches, but of course, it can also be studied with philosophical approach. According to the Greek scholars like Plato and Aristotle, there is no strict separation between politics and ethics. The question of good political life is never separated from good life. For Greek scholars, of course. For them, being a good citizen and a good man is same thing. So the earlier scholars that we have seen, what they dealt with is normative issues of political life, like ideal state, idea of justice, etc. How do we use the philosophical approach to create an understanding of issues of politics? So how do we study the political phenomena through philosophical approach? We'll try to understand. So before understanding the philosophical approach, we have to understand what is philosophy. Okay, so by philosophy we mean understanding the idea, basically understanding the essence of a certain idea, okay, which is inherent in a particular empirical object. Plato was not the first person. I think Plato was the first person to suggest that we should study the idea rather than mere empirical manifestations. So empirical manifestations are basically the observations. For Plato, the idea is superior than matter. Plato is emphasizing on how we should focus on the idea rather than matter, rather than observation. So now, how do you understand the idea? Okay, so Plato suggested that dialectics is a way to understand the idea. In contemporary times, if you see, there are scholars like Leo Strauss, Isaiah Berlin, we have, I think, Gunnar Myrdal. So all of these are the contemporary scholars who focus on philosophical approach to understand a political phenomenon, to understand or to build or to create an understanding or to do a political inquiry on a certain empirical object. They apply or they use this philosophical approach. Okay, Leo Strauss believed that there is no difference in political theory and political philosophy. According to him, the purpose of the political inquiry is not only to describe or explain, but to also suggest that how it should be done or what should be done. Okay, hence these scholars support the normative nature of discipline and appropriateness of philosophical approach. Let's take the example of fundamental rights. So when you are applying the philosophical approach, okay, you're focusing on how the fundamental rights should be, how the fundamental rights are the basic rights that has to be given to everyone. So we are just manifesting how it should be on paper, or we are trying to understand the idea of rights. But ground reality may be different, because a lot of people may or may not be able to exercise those fundamental rights. They are not in a position to exercise those fundamental rights. The philosophical approach suffers from certain limitations. For example, it is highly subjective in nature. The idea of justice may be different for different persons. So the idea of rights might not be same for different people in different societies. For example, a person sitting in Afghanistan, let's say, and another person who is sitting in some of the Western countries like USA, both of them might not have the same they might not have the same idea when it comes to the gender equality. So what I'm trying to say is that the same idea can be pursued or same idea can be seen differently by different people, which makes the idea very subjective. It is highly subjective in nature. Hence the work may be biased in nature. Suppose you are using the philosophical approach to conduct a political inquiry on justice. Since you are using the philosophical approach, you will be just focusing on how democracy should be or how justice should be. Okay, you will forget or you will ignore the ground reality, how justice exists in different societies. And if you do that, there is a danger that works may be diverged from reality, because you're just manifesting how the democracy should be. You're not checking the ground reality, how it is being practiced in different societies. So that makes your work, diverge from reality. Philosophical approach alone will not serve the purpose. It should be used with combination of different approaches. So there are different approaches that has to be used in combination in order to understand a particular idea, or in order to do a political inquiry on certain empirical object. Just to remember as example, suppose if you want to understand the philosophy of democracy or issue of democracy, using philosophical approach, you'll study the idea behind democracy, what ought to be in democracy, but the reality will be missing in it, since the focus is on what ought to be rather than what is. Even though philosophical approach has certain limitations, it is important to understand that political philosophy or philosophical approach is very suitable for the nature of questions that emerge in the subject. Because in political science, mostly we are dealing with the normative issues, like idea of justice, what should be the system of rights, what should be the system of liberty. Okay, so this approach has to be understood and used in combination with other approaches to have a comprehensive reality.